Let's face an uncomfortable truth. The Gospels, which we often treat as historical accounts, were not written by Jesus' disciples. The first Gospel, the Gospel of Mark, wasn't written until around 40 years after Jesus' death, by someone who never met him. So why do we continue to consider them as eyewitness accounts? The truth is, the Gospels were written decades after the events they describe, and by people with their own agendas.
What if I told you the church has known this for a long time? Let's look at the evidence together.
Let's take a step back. But there's a much larger gap when you look at the time between Jesus' death and the completion of all four Gospels. It's around 110 years. This timeline shows how Christianity evolved over generations, with different versions of Jesus' story being told by various groups. In the meantime, early Christianity was shaped mostly by oral traditions and letters written by Paul in the 50s CE. Paul's letters contain his personal beliefs, but they aren't historical accounts of Jesus' life. The Gospels, on the other hand, are written much later, long after the events they claim to describe. In reality, the Gospels weren't written to preserve history. They were written as propaganda during a time of conflict between different Christian groups.
Even the Vatican has announced that the Gospels are not complete. This means that they reflect the struggles and beliefs of early Christian communities.
Here's where it gets interesting. There are contradictions within the Gospels themselves that many people don't usually hear about. Let's take the story of Jesus' ascension to heaven as an example. According to the Gospel of Luke, Luke 24:51, Jesus ascended to heaven on Easter Sunday, right after his resurrection. But in the book of Acts, which was also written by Luke, it says Jesus ascended 40 days after Easter, Acts 1:3. And here's the big issue. The Gospel of Mark doesn't mention the ascension at all. These aren't just small mistakes or typos. They reveal that the Gospel writers edited the stories in ways that fit their own theological beliefs and political agendas, changing key details to make them align with their message. Let's talk about forgeries. The oldest known Bible manuscripts, like the Codex Sinaiticus, end the Gospel of Mark at verse 16.8. And guess what? There's no resurrection appearance in the original manuscript. But later copies of the Gospel added 12 more verses, Mark 16:9-20, including strange and supernatural stories like snake handling and poison drinking. These added verses are not from the original Gospel. They were forged by later scribes. Even today, most Bible editions include a footnote saying that these verses were added later. Did you know that there were over 100 Gospels in the early centuries of Christianity? One of the most famous of these is the Gospel of Thomas, which includes sayings of Jesus like, "The kingdom is inside you." But in 393 AD, the church made a decision. They destroyed most of these texts, keeping only the four Gospels that we know today. The reason? These lost Gospels didn't fit the narrative the church wanted to create. The church wanted to control the message of Christianity, so they only allowed Gospels that aligned with their vision of the faith. Many of these lost texts were written by groups like the Jewish Christians, who followed Jesus' family, and their stories didn't match the mainstream Christian beliefs. In 1965, during the Vatican II Council, the Catholic Church made a shocking admission. They stated that the Gospels contain human elements, which is a polite way of saying they are not perfect. Cardinal Danielou, one of the prominent figures in the Vatican, went even further, saying the Gospels reflect the struggles and conflicts of early Christian factions. In other words, the Gospels were political documents designed to promote the power of certain groups within early Christianity. The Bible, just like any other historical text, is deeply influenced by the politics of the time.
So let's ask the big question. If the Gospels were not written by eyewitnesses, if they are full of contradictions, if they were edited and shaped by political agendas, then what impact can this have on our perspective? So it's better not to see the Gospels as divine truth, but rather as documents crafted by humans who wrote them to gain power and influence. Do you agree with this perspective or do you have a different opinion? I look forward to your thoughts in the comments section. To support us, like this video, then subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our future videos.